All right, Shane, thanks so much for joining us. I am Jeanette Barnard, creator of Prime Future, and today we are joined by Shane Thomas, who hopefully most of you follow him and are subscribed to his newsletter, Upstream Insights. But I'm going to let Shane introduce himself. Shane?
Hi, thanks, Jeanette, for having me on here. I'm happy to be here today. We obviously interact frequently via social media, via our newsletters, and I always learn a lot from you. So really lucky to be here and chat a little bit with you. And so yeah, I'm up here in Canada and in Calgary, Alberta. I'm redditor of Upstream Ag Insights, a weekly agribusiness newsletter that really goes through new events, occurrences, happenings, reports, whether it's investor reports, whether it's industry reports, and really I try to provide some context, try to provide some clarity, and provide a different lens or a unique frame to view the information and the news through. And so it's been a fun endeavor, and that's how I really came into contact with you, Jeanette. And so I write Upstream, and I also do some consulting work for a number of different small agribusinesses, large agribusinesses, and that's really just started here in the last couple months. I'm an agronomist by training, but have also went into and looked after distribution, marketing, digital strategy for large agribusinesses, as well as worked for digital agriculture companies, and so yeah, have a pretty diverse experience, but that's really kind of the culmination of where Upstream came from, anyways.
Awesome. Well, and I think it's the diversity of your background that makes Upstream Insights it makes it really rich. You bring a lot of different perspectives to the table when you write that newsletter. So I always appreciate that. So it also, for those of you who saw his newsletter from this Sunday, Shane shared a piece that he wrote about his predictions for 2021 as it relates to AgTech. And so today I just wanted to dig into that a little bit and talk through some of these. So Shane, you had 5 predictions that you shared. Which of those are you most excited about? Which of those is the most intriguing to you?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I guess they're all semi-interesting in their own sort of way, but the one that I think is most compelling, and I think I kind of frame them as predictions, but they're kind of just things I'm interested in at the end of the day. I try to bring some humility to it, where I'm not necessarily going to be able to understand the future, but there's trends and things that I try to look for and see, and so one of them is within agriculture, within farming is kind of where my specific niche is, large farm businesses and the Midwest US, Western Canada, that sort of thing. And one of the things I'm excited about is really hearing a lot more about some of these agribusinesses, farms, really focusing a lot more on the power of data. And I think everybody understands data and what it can do, but I feel and see a lot of it where there's organizations that are saying, oh, we have all this data, we have the data. And to me, data is worthless without action. You need to take action, you need to be doing something with it. And it's not just looking at it from a hindsight perspective. I tend to look at it from a few different ways, where there's kind of using data on a kind of backwards facing way, where it's using what happened and then trying to form the future. There's real-time data and insights, and being able to take action and do something with the data you're acquiring in real time as things are happening. And there's kind of using that data to more predict what's going to happen and take action in anticipation of that, or to make that happen. And I think what I'm seeing now is a lot more organizations really understand that, hey, you know what, it's not so much just about looking backwards with the data. It's about how can we actually take this data, how can we actually create a feedback loop that's a lot quicker, that's a lot tighter, and that can help us decide and inform in season. And so, if I'm an agribusiness, say I'm an ag retailer, for example, how can that's, again, traditionally in an analog situation where it's all relationship, it's all customer to customer, for example, but how can I actually acquire more data in real time to really understand what might happen in season? And so maybe that's through an online digital portal where you're seeing what farmers are searching for, or maybe you have your digital portal connected into some of your digital agronomy tools that are actually feeding what's happening in the field with through weather stations, whether it's feeding it in through satellite imagery, and you're really getting an understanding of what's going on and what's happening. And you can actually have your sales staff, you can have your agronomists, you can have whoever it is working with your farmers to make sure that they are getting the best possible customer experience and doing what's possible in real time and moving things ahead to support their business. And so that's one area that I'm super excited about. I think there's a lot more understanding happening, and because I know even within the last year, you probably still hear it too, Jeanette, where it's like, well, they're just going to sell the data. Well, people don't necessarily want to be selling data. It's about even, Facebook, Google, they don't sell data. They really utilize that data to deliver insights, better products is in advertisements, better anticipation of what's going to happen. With Google, who built out and spent billions of dollars on building out things like maps, because they knew that that was going to be something that was sticky, that would acquire more data, that would help inform their business in the future. And I think that's where agribusiness can really go. And being a digital first business is sometimes difficult when being digital first business is different than being analog first and then trying to transform into digital. I think there's opportunity to really drive that here in the coming year and beyond. So sorry, that was a little long-winded, but a little overview
No,
there.
it was great. It was great. So it's kind of an interesting point too that you make of Google, Facebook, et cetera. They don't sell your data in raw form of here's the Excel spreadsheet, Mr. or Mrs. Advertiser. That's not how it works, right?
No.
They're selling that, they're leveraging that data in order to create value for a specific customer segment of theirs. The interesting thing in ag is that the way it should work anyways, that farmer data should allow those data capturers and analytics providers to create higher value for the provider of the data, which is the farmer. I mean, wouldn't you agree that that's where the ultimate model comes into play?
Yeah, 100%. It's about how can you actually better understand what's going to happen and help make that help inform that farmer's decision in real time, or help inform the agronomist's decision, whatever it is, to be able to take action that's going to provide a better outcome. And that's really what, when you look at Google and Facebook, they're delivering better outcomes to advertisers. And I think that's what agribusinesses can be for when they start to utilize data in a more powerful way here. And I think that's something we will see in 2021.
Right. So another interesting thing is that on the animal ag side,
Yep.
as you think about that continuum of the value of analytics from diagnostic to predictive that you just described, in animal ag, one of our challenges is that we don't have a lot of real-time data. I think a lot of progress has been made on that the last couple of years. We have technology that's coming to market, but we're not great about the data capture in the first place, let alone ways to use that data in higher value ways.
Yep.
How would you describe kind of the current state of where you are on the farm side, on the crop side, as far as data capture versus the gap being more of the analytics side of how do we create higher value from the data?
Yeah, I think we're probably in a similar place, maybe even behind animal ag, to be honest with you. I could be off on that. But when I look at it, obviously you have sensors and chips and these different things that you can have in the pen, you can have in the barn, that might give you a little bit of understanding of what's going on with those animals. With the farm, I mean, obviously I tend to focus on the large scale. So, 160 acre fields, large operations. And so all of a sudden you get a lot of variability between what's going on in 1 acre versus another acre. And the cost to actually put sensors out and to understand all those different things is pretty high. And so you kind of have this difficulty with the intersection of where do the economics shake out, where the incremental data is worth it to acquire, but actually informs a decision that is worthwhile to make and inform with that new technology. And so right now we're seeing people, the cost of sensors is coming down, the ability to manage some of that data and process it and all that is getting better. There's still always going to be challenges with weather and all these different things in real time, but I think that we are getting closer to actually being able to utilize that in a more meaningful way, whether it's through weather modeling, so we can inform on pest prediction. So, and that's not even necessarily to just be like, oh, hey, we got to go spray our insecticide now. But as you get new models and understanding and you're informed that much earlier, can you utilize different products? Can you have an entirely different business model? And I think that's something that's not here today, but I'm starting to talk with some of these organizations that are, looking at how can we model out, say, a potential pest coming in, and how can we utilize, say, something that's a biological, like a pheromone-based product, to apply that a week earlier. So now all of a sudden you're not going in after the fact that the insects have actually came. You've proactively done something with a product like a Provivi or something with pheromone to actually call it detract or push away some of those insects. And so we're not there today, but there is this understanding that we need to acquire that data. There's the sensor technology prices coming down, the modeling capabilities, the data scientists in ag. And so I think that is something that we're going to see more and more kind of roll up here in 2021.
Yeah. So it's funny because hearing you say that, it makes me think that I always think that the crop side is so much further ahead than the livestock side. It makes me think they're probably in the similar position, because you talk about sensors in barns, all of this. there's starting to be some of that. We know what's possible, but it still comes back to what you said of finding the right value proposition for what's the specific use case, what's the specific decision we're trying to make, how do you make all of that make sense? Which kind of leads to one of your other areas of interest, areas of prediction of customer centricity moving into 2021. There was a sense you made about, solving customers' problems, not just solving for the problem of digitization in general. Talk to us more about that.
Yeah, I think, and I think a lot of this reference in AgTech tends to come back to, I think it was a McKinsey study that was ag is one of the least digitized industries, and I don't know if any of us would necessarily, argue with that, but that in and of itself is not a reason to digitize. Digitization, technology in and of itself is about solving problems and about making things better and progressing things forward. And if there's not a specific problem that is being solved, there's no need to necessarily use technology in any form, let alone digital, to come in there. And I think that's where there's been a lot of challenges. We've kind of, and myself included, as I kind of romanticize all these potential things, all the ways that streamlining crop planning, streamlining the informedness of a farm manager, but there's still things that need to be looked at in a more call it precise way to understand exactly what is the problem that we are solving, what is it that the pain point is, and actually looking at the process of what a farmer is doing on a day-to-day basis and understanding where is that very specific pain point, or where is that problem, and what is the intensity of that problem, how much pain do they feel, or how many resources does it take, how much time, how much money, how much just inconvenience, those sorts of things. And it's the frequency of it. How often are you having that specific issue? Is it every single day, once a week? Is it once a year? Because if I have a problem once a year, like taxes, for example, all these different things that happen once a year for me, but do I want to take action and spend thousands of dollars to alleviate that? If it's just once a year, I might just suck it up and deal with it. And the same with farming, where there might be a problem, but it doesn't happen enough and it's not intense enough, and so I don't have a willingness to pay for that. And so if I'm a farmer, if I'm a business person, you need the pain to be there, the frequency, and you need that farmer to want to pay for that to alleviate that problem, and that's one aspect. And you might have a few farmers that actually will do that, but then you need that total addressable market to be big enough that do feel that pain. And so I think it's kind of going through that process and thinking more specifically about that farmer's journey, that farmer's experience, with whether I'm an agribusiness that is a retailer or whether I'm a new startup, and really understanding what is that problem that farmer is feeling, what are their days like, what are they actually doing, whether it's spraying season, whether it's planting, whether it's off season, what are the things that you can do to actually support those pain points, or identify those pain points, and then support them, and then identify if there is a business or a product opportunity there.
Absolutely. And that whole concept of, there's a lot of places we could apply technology, but really looking at where should we apply technology? Where is the ROI at? And I think on the livestock side, that's where we haven't really found that, right? I mean, there are a lot of offerings right now that are using sensors, but trying to identify what's the right use case, what's the right value proposition to support it. Is it a hardware piece with a software component that's going to alert you when the cow is about to calve? And in what operations does that work versus, I had a rancher in Montana that was approached about that. And they said, first of all, we don't have connectivity. Second of all, yes, we want, cows to have calving ease, but even if they don't, they're out on large pastures. We're not going to go out there and help every cow deliver a calf that's having a hard time, right? So to include, cow-calf operations, commercial cattle in a total addressable market for a solution like that, that's unrealistic, right? 100%. So just that alignment of product market fit.
Yeah, that's exactly. And one thing, this is something that I've been thinking a lot about, but I've been collaborating a little bit with Sarah Nolette and Matt Pryor of AgTech, the super sharp individuals, and talking a lot about the farmer psychology and how does that actually play into the products that you actually deliver. Because do you want to feel like you're in less control? Does the farmer feel like there needs to be incremental investment that they can just manage the way they always have? And so lots of these different different things need to be considered. And I do think, again, we've been hearing a lot about some of the really astute people have been talking about this for a while, that you have to be focused on the customer. But I think more and more are really starting to come around to the fact that, hey, we do need to really understand the problem. We can't just use technology for technology's sake to check a box, which I think happens way too often. And so I think that's something that, whether it's in animal ag or the farm side, I think there's a lot of potential to really move the ball forward and understand what's happening.
Absolutely. And any startups listening to this, I think a big takeaway is that a pitch for a product should not have anything to do with feeding 9 billion people in the world, or that agriculture is the least digitized industry. Like, those are not compelling pitches for your product.
Yeah, I agree. I was at a conference, or a digital conference last year, I guess, in December, and I think the comment from the one VC was, it used to be about producing more and output and all those different things, and obviously it's still about that. We do still need to produce all these different things, but it's about better agriculture in 2021 and beyond. Is about how do we do it better? How do we take into account social things, environmental things, and I think that obviously that is something that we're hearing a lot more about, and it's a lot more interest, whether it's to consumers, whether it's large agribusinesses, whether it's environmental groups. Everybody's kind of focusing a little bit more on it, so it's exciting.
Absolutely. Well, Shane, thanks so much for joining us. This has been a really fun conversation. For anyone that is not subscribed to Upstream Insights, subscribe. It's good stuff. So thanks so much, Shane.
Yeah, thanks, Jeanette.